Okay, and now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Public Radio Program. And welcome
hello.
to the show.
Yes, and we didn't have time to chat with Webley Webster or Wally Ballou or anybody before we went on the air today. But Webley, hello.
Hello
Wally.
there. It's a pleasure to be here. How's this show going? It sounds like a turkey back there.
Well, we only started about 30 seconds ago. You haven't heard any much
I got
of it.
big vibes of a turkey coming.
You can't tell. You can't tell.
I
that
can
fast.
tell in 30 seconds whether it's going to be a turkey or not. This,
No, I'd
this
like
is
to
a
know.
full-blown Tom Turkey.
I'd like to know how you can tell that. I think your opinion is going to change greatly, young man, by the end of this half hour.
Well, I certainly hope so. Meanwhile, I'll sit backstage and get the turkey cage ready in case he starts to run away.
We have a little sad music from Stan Free now.
Yes, again today, our scouts have been searching the railroad and bus stations for victims of misfortune. Now, we've found that you listeners enjoy hearing these pathetic people tell their tragic stories. And, of course, we all get a warm feeling when our generous Bob and Ray organization steps forward with its lovely gifts to solve each and every problem. So, Bob, let's start the fun with that sad specimen there beside you.
Sure thing, Ray. This is Mr. Morton Boatwright of Kansas City, Missouri. And according to the card here, Mr. Boatwright, you became stranded in New York while you were attempting to begin a voyage to a virtually unexplored area of Central Africa. I'm sure there must be quite a story that goes with that.
Well, no, at least not originally. See, I was just going to Africa because you can't buy a giraffe from Kansas City. But then the tramp steamer I was planning to take from New York to the Ivory Coast left without me, and I ran out of money here, waiting around for some other form of transportation.
Oh.
So I guess it's gotten to be quite an interesting story by now.
Yes, and I imagine it might become even more fascinating if we knew why you need a giraffe so badly.
Well, that's easy enough to explain. You see, I don't live right in Kansas City. I live in a suburb about 20 miles out of town. It's like most of your upper-middle-class suburbs where the neighbors all try to keep up with each other.
Mm-hmm.
One of them gets a new car, then the rest of us have to go out and get a new one, too. And the next one gets a boat, and then everybody else does. So I had to think of something that would usually, really take the heat out of them,
Yeah, like buying a giraffe, you mean?
Yeah. It seemed like the ideal way to flaunt my wealth.
Mm-hmm.
A giraffe owner doesn't even have to mention that he's got a new giraffe, He just put him out in the front yard and act casual about it while the neighbors turn green with envy.
Yeah, seems like a diabolical idea, all right, but if you're only looking for a new way to flaunt your wealth, how do you happen to be appearing on our show as a hardship case?
Well, my fried chicken franchise back home went bankrupt while I was hanging around here waiting for a tramp steamer to the Ivory Coast.
Well, you certainly deserve our heartfelt sympathy, sir, but to help you get back on your feet, I'd like to have you have this lovely gift from our generous Bob and Ray organization, a gorgeous revolving lawn sprinkler complete with 50 yards of plastic garden hose.
Well, I can't flaunt that in front of the neighbors. They already got sprinklers and garden
Okay,
hose.
use it in good health, sir. Now, our next hard luck story is Mrs. Tilly Fonts of Logan, Utah. I hear that you're in desperate need of cash so you can walk clear across the country on your hands, Mrs. Fonts.
That's right. See, I was quite a tomboy when I was a child. In fact, I was the only youngster who could walk clear across the school playground on her hands. So I guess that's why Tubby Wertzmer double dared me to walk all the way from New York to California on my hands. It's taken me this long to scrape together even part of the money to start out.
Well, judging from your appearance, it must have been many years ago that you were a child. Do you think this little boy you spoke of still cares whether you accept his dare or not?
Oh, indeed he does. It's gotten so I hate to go into his pinball arcade back home because I know he's going to make some smart remark about my failing to walk across the country on my hands. And I still may not be able to make it. I figure I'll wear out at least 200 pairs of work gloves on this trip, and well, I can't afford to buy them.
Oh, that's a terrible predicament you find yourself in, but we want to help you with a handsome gift, Miss Fonts. It's a chrome-plated head block for your hot rod from Conrad's Custom Cars of Cleveland. I think you'll enjoy that.
I don't have a hot rod.
Okay.
Whatever gave you that idea?
We're here to help, and we'll, I think, have time for one more hard luck story from Mr. Farley Plummer of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that you, Mr. Plummer? You spent your life savings on a trip to New York to have some dental work done, I think.
Well, that's right.
And you may have noticed I'm only 10.5 inches tall.
Mm-hmm, I did.
So, of course, I have a very small mouth and a tiny little teeth in there. Now, I couldn't find a dentist in Tulsa who had the right equipment to handle my case, so I figured I'd better come to a specialist in New York.
I see. And now you need the money to pay for a dental specialist here in New York to work on your teeth. Is that it?
No. Now I need the money to go on to Dublin Island. I found out there's no dentist in New York who specializes in people my size either, but one of them told me I'm about the same height as a leprechaun. And he assumed that those little guys all commute into Dublin to have their teeth fixed. So I want to give it a try. I've got one cavity that's really killing me now.
There's nothing more tragic, I think everyone here will agree, than to behold the suffering of a fellow human, or whatever you are. So, from our generous Bob and Ray organization, we'd like you to have this fine gift, a deluxe racing bike from Klingman and Klingman of Denver.
See, I don't know what to say, you know. Being 10.5 inches tall, I get a lot of inappropriate gifts, but this really takes the cake.
No thanks. No thanks are necessary, sir.
Yeah.
Just seeing the smile on your little face is reward enough. And now back over to Ray at our main anchor desk.
Say, I'd like to remind you that only 2 days remain to enter the giant sweepstakes contest now going on at your Monongahela Metal Foundry. Nothing to buy, and only a certain amount of obligation. But you could win a full new set of extra shiny steel ingots every month for as long as you live, or one of 528 smaller prizes.
And the sweepstakes contest is so simple to enter, really. Just visit your local Monongahela dealer and give him your estimate of the total number. If your guess is close, you're a winner. But you must act before midnight tomorrow. So get on your thinking caps and start preparing your estimate right now.
Now it's time once again to pick up some valuable tips for you home handymen as we pay another of our regular visits to the basement workshop of Fred Falvey, the do-it-yourselfer. And Fred, I'm glad I found you at home today. When I saw all those rolled-up newspapers out in your front yard, I was afraid you might be away on vacation.
No, Ray. I rolled up all those papers and scattered them around the yard about a week ago. It's part of a do-it-yourself project I'm involved in.
Well, I can't imagine what it is, Fred, unless it has something to do with all the burglars you'll attract by creating the impression that you're away from home.
No, I admit having all those rolled-up papers in the yard does attract a few prowlers who think the place is deserted, but what little they steal is more than offset by the money I save from leaving papers out there until they get good and soggy.
You just leave them out there in the rain and snow or whatever until it happens again?
Yes, you see, the idea is to let nature convert the newspapers back into wood pulp. Then you can burn them in the fireplace just like logs, only the cost is much less, of course.
Well, it certainly sounds like another wonderful example of better living by doing it yourself, Fred.
I think so.
How long does it take for the natural elements to turn newspapers back into wood pulp?
Well, I'm not really sure, Ray. I read in a book where it would take about 200,000 years for paper to become converted into coal, but I'm certain changing it into wood pulp wouldn't take near that long.
Well, then I suppose it could even happen within our lifetime.
Oh.
That'll be a real money saver if it does, too.
It does, right.
Now I know that all our beloved friends of the radio audience are anxious to hear about the do-it-yourself project that you've chosen to describe today.
Well, today I've chosen a real money-saving project to describe for our beloved friends of the radio audience. I'm sure most of us are aware that handmade lampshades have gone up in price faster than the general cost of living.
Well, no, I wasn't aware of that, Fred.
Most people are aware of it, Ray. However, it's not generally known that do-it-yourselfers can make lovely lampshades right in the basement workshop just using some inexpensive equipment and a few simple tools.
Well, I noticed that you have some blue paper stacked up here on the workbench. Is that what you're using for your lampshade project?
Yes.
Or what?
This paper's good, sturdy 20-pound bond. Ray comes cut into 8.5 by 11 sheets as a rule, and the colors these particular sheets is blue.
Yeah, I didn't know about the size and weight. I noticed it was blue, though.
You can get it in almost any color you want. It's just ordinary mimeograph stock. And the paper mill here in the neighborhood where I bought these sheets also had it in white and pink and yellow. I don't think they make mimeograph paper in black, but you probably wouldn't want to use black for a lampshade anyway.
No, I imagine black paper would absorb too much light. So what do you do after you've selected the color for your lampshade? Do you make some kind of a wireframe stretch the paper across?
No, you don't have to get into all that. You just roll a sheet of paper into a sort of a paper cone, taking care to leave the small end large enough to fit around a bulb socket. And then you staple the edges of your paper together using an ordinary office stapler filled with number 5 wire staples. Here, I'll show you how it's done. Like that, and that.
Well, Fred is stapling along the edge of... He's stapling along the edge of his rolled-up sheet of paper. That certainly is making it stay in the conical shape you want. I don't quite know what you're going to do with it, though. What are you going to do with it now?
Well, the rest is actually easy, Ray. I just unscrew this bulb hanging down from the ceiling, and I put my blue paper shade around the socket like this, and then as I screw the bulb back in, that holds my cone-shaped piece of paper where I want it. That's why I rolled the paper into a cone to make the shade in the first place, so the bulb would hold it in place.
I see. Well, of course, this piece of blue paper you've stapled together makes a fine shade for a naked bulb hanging down from the ceiling, but there aren't many fixtures like that around anymore. What if you want a shade for a regular lamp?
Well, you can buy those at any lampshade store, Ray. It's the ones for those old-time ceiling fixtures that are hard to locate. I went to 6 or 7 stores and couldn't find one.
Well, then you can save time as well as money by making your own, if you happen to be one of those rare individuals with an old-time ceiling fixture. So we could certainly say that this is just one more prime example of how to live better by doing it yourself. And we've been privileged to hear all about it directly from the basement workshop of Fred Falvey, the do-it-yourselfer.
We've got kind of a scoop right here with our next guest, and I understand he has to leave fairly soon. So the story of this man's trial has been front-page news in many newspapers all across the country the past few weeks. He's the corrupt mayor of Skunk Haven, New Jersey, Mayor Ralph Moody Thayer.
Thank you.
Mayor Thayer. Is the jury still out, by the way?
Yes, it is. But my attorney is negotiating with the foreman of that august group now. And we feel we have nothing to fear. We believe that you can attract more flies with honey than you can with vinegar.
Well, Mayor Thayer, to go back over your checkered career, you were a petty forger, a master swindler, a convicted embezzler.
And convicted of perjury several times.
Yes. Now, how does it all start? How does one start out on a life of corruption such as the one you built for yourself?
Oh, I guess it started when I was a kid. I used to cheat in exams in grade school. And I used to tell malicious lies about my fellow students to the teacher.
You see, I've always believed I could build myself up by tearing somebody else down.
Now, after your formal schooling was completed, I think you developed an interest in financial matters, money lending.
Loan sharking.
Yes.
I did that for several years until the criminal element in town asked me to run for public office. I took that as a mandate.
Yeah, I remember that first election. It still stands as the crookedest in Skunk Haven's history.
Thank you.
And from then on, of course, it was all downhill, really. Over the years, you've riddled every department of your administration with corruption, all the way through right down to the Visiting Nurse Association. I'd like to ask you one question, and you don't need to answer right away. Give it some thought,
All right.
if you like. Would you say it's easier to be corrupt today than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, my,
You
yes.
would.
You see, 10 or 15 years ago, it was a disgrace to be corrupt. No, it's a very fertile field, and I recommend it to anybody with a devious mind who's willing to put in long, long hours without working hard. They'll find it terribly enriching, fully rewarding.
Well, I'm sure we'll all be able to draw something from your words here tonight. I want to thank you very much for coming by, and we'll be anxious to hear what the jury decides when it comes back in.
Well, don't give it a thought. I'm not.
Thank you, Mayor Thayer. So much for politics. Right now, a special message for parakeet owners. Friends, do you have trouble putting insect poison in out-of-the-way places where your bird won't eat it? If so, it's time you switch to Einbinder flypaper for the sake of your defenseless pet. Impartial laboratory tests show that flypaper is seldom fatal to parakeets, even when they fly directly into it.
A few feathers may stick to the paper and be pulled out, but eventual full recovery has occurred in 83% of all test cases. So for safety's sake, get Einbinder flypaper, the brand you've gradually grown to trust over the course of 3 generations.
And welcome again to Garish Summitt and its endless story of intrigue among the socially prominent. There in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As this week's action begins, we find ruthless young Caldwell Murchfield on a business trip to a large eastern city. He is unpacking his suitcase at the hotel when he suddenly turns to his trusted ranch foreman, E.L. Smitty Dittman. Caldwell speaks.
I just can't figure it, Smitty. Why would I bring my ranch foreman with me on a business trip to a large eastern city?
Yeah. I reckon you know the answer to that question as well as I do, Mr. Murchfield.
No, I don't believe so. In fact, I didn't think you'd know the answer either. I only asked on the off chance that you might.
Yeah, I'll get it. Hello? Palatial Suite 1532. Smitty speaking. Oh, good evening, Miss Agatha. How's the weather back there? Yeah, we had a real smooth flight. He's right here beside me, putting his socks in the drawer. Thanks. Nice talking to you, too. Goodbye.
Was that my mother?
Yeah, bad news, I'm afraid. Your brother Rodney's fiancée, Pamela, was thrown from her horse up near the peak of Old Baldy. The forest rangers say they won't even be able to bring her down till the blizzard stops.
Great Scott, what about the baby?
Which baby is that, sir?
The little red-haired tyke that I always see with Pamela whenever she goes horseback riding.
Well, that's not a baby, Mr. M. It's an Irish setter. I've often noticed it trotting along beside Pamela as she rode, both of them with their hair blowing in the wind. And now to think of them trapped up there on that mountain.
Well, the snow seems to be coming down harder than ever, Mr. Pardew.
Yes, and I believe we should look on the bright side of that, Pamela. The longer you're trapped up here, the bigger the lawsuit you can file when you get back.
Well, that's a comforting thought. And I'm grateful that you, as our family attorney, could get through to me even if the paramedics couldn't. Who would I sue in a case like this, where I was just clumsy and fell off my horse?
Well, I don't think this was merely another of your stupid accidents, Pamela. I suspect someone tampered with your riding gear because they wanted you to fall. Everyone in Garish Summitt knew you were carrying Rodney's baby.
Well, that wasn't a baby, Mr. Pardew. It was an Irish setter. I had to start carrying it because it hurt its paw.
Well, can it be that Agatha has more troubles ahead? And what about the mysterious owner of the Irish setter? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we resume our story of endless intrigue on Garish Summitt.
Now it's time for another story of drama and tense emotion, a tale well designed to keep you in anxiety. And here with us again to set the stage for our latest thriller is the noted author and world traveler, Commander Neville Putney. Commander, I'm sure you've reached into your amazing file and brought forth another tale, well designed to keep us all in anxiety.
Oh, need I have, young man. Today's hair-raising yarn concerns two promising young bank tellers named Warren Huey and Weldon Glimbiter. Both had received considerable praise from their branch manager for displaying the ability to make change and add figures correctly. It seemed as if promotions for the pair were almost certain, and then one terrible mistake brought them face to face with anxiety. The two heroes of our drama had struck up a casual friendship with one of the bank's wealthy clients who chanced to be president of the Amalgamated Stepladder Company. It was he who tipped them off that Amalgamated was about to unveil a new model that would glow in the dark. Warren and Weldon saw a chance to double their money overnight by embezzling funds from the bank to buy Amalgamated stock. They were certain they could replace the money before it was missed. But as Weldon returned to his desk after phoning the stockbroker to sell at a big profit, his eyes were downcast. Warren noticed immediately.
Weldon, I noticed immediately that your eyes are downcast. You don't need to feel bad if we fail to double our money overnight. I'll gladly settle for a gain of 50%, just so we can sell out and replace what we embezzled before Mr. Prouty notices the shortage.
Yeah, I wish it were possible to settle for a gain of 50% or even break even, Warren, but when I phoned our broker and told him to sell Amalgamated stepladder, he said he couldn't give it away at any price.
Good gravy, Weldon. I don't understand. This is the day when the new Amalgamated glow-in-the-dark model was to be introduced. Did our broker say why the development had caused the stock to go down?
No, he just said that Amalgamated stepladder had dropped as far as it could go and that we should have known it was a risky investment when we bought it.
Good gravy, Weldon. It's small wonder you've returned to face me with downcast eyes. We're in a real pickle.
True, it's also a fine kettle of fish.
Well, I think it goes without saying that this is a fine kettle of fish, but the thing that raises it to the level of a real pickle is the fact that we didn't just lose our own money, Walt. We've embezzled funds from the bank. And we'll go to the hoosegow for sure when the shortage is discovered.
Yes, there's no doubt about that, Warren. Buying stock in Amalgamated stepladder seemed like a surefire way to get rich quick. Instead, that one little mistake has wiped out 2 promising careers. Now we'll be packed away to the hoosegow until we both rot.
Boy, oh boy, Commander, that story really had me perched on the edge of my chair. Wow, you just can't leave us all in anxiety this way. Did Weldon and Warren throw themselves on the mercy of the court and somehow miraculously escape a long term in prison?
No, as I recall, they merely sold their Amalgamated stepladder stock at a profit of several $100,000. So, of course, that enabled them to replace the bank funds they'd stolen and still have plenty left over to retire to the French Riviera.
Well, wait a minute. I don't understand, Commander. In your story, Weldon and Warren's broker told them that the Amalgamated stepladder had dropped as far as it could go and that he couldn't even give it away.
No, young man. That was only a momentary misunderstanding. You see, Weldon dialed a wrong number and reached some house painter by mistake instead of his stockbroker. As chance would have it, the painter had just tumbled off an Amalgamated stepladder at work. So, in a fit of pique, he naturally answered Weldon's inquiry about Amalgamated by saying it was worthless and risky because it had just fallen as far as it could go.
Commander, that is the most ridiculous story I have ever heard in my life.
I quite agree, and Weldon and Warren got a hearty chuckle out of it themselves once they discovered the silly error they'd made. I'm glad to see you find it amusing, too.
Well, I didn't say I found it amusing, Commander. The word I used was ridiculous. And I don't think Weldon and Warren got a chuckle out of it either, as you claim. Because I don't think Weldon and Warren ever existed. You just made up this whole dumb thing.
Cheeky young blighter, you haven't the vaguest notion what you're talking about. Now, I suggest you read the closing announcement before you find yourself in very serious trouble.
Well, after that clinker, I think we're both in serious trouble. But I'll try to get through this closing announcement. So, friends, join us again next time when Commander Putney will again reach into his amazing file and bring forth a tale well designed to keep you in anxiety.
Well,